Valve already has the PC audience cornered, essentially. They have plenty of companies that have tried to compete with them over the years, but they all seem to come up short, at least in my opinion. And no matter what these other companies seem to do, Valve somehow they continue to quote unquote do nothing and win. Although I don't really think it's fair to say that Valve does nothing. I think that they do a lot, most of it behind the scenes, some of it good, some of it bad. But Valve just published their 2024 year in review, and the numbers that they have posted are staggering. According to Valve, 2024 was the Steam platform's best year ever in terms of customers buying newly released games. And this is not a fluke. This is a pattern of growth over time that other companies would be very happy to have. Check out this graph of the last 8 years of what Valve calls new release revenue. Every single year, with the exception of 2023, was a big improvement over the previous year, with 2023 being a slightly lower year than 2022, and then 2024 being an absolute massive mammoth jump over the previous year. Valve classifies new release revenue as gross revenue from the first 30 days following a product's release, plus pre-purchase revenue if there is any. For clarity, a game is only counted once. So if a game launched into early access, they use the early access initial date rather than a future 1.0 date. According to Valve, this number has increased nearly 10 times over since 2014. That is 1,000% of growth over 10 years, which is absolutely nuts. Plus, on top of that, in 2024, more than 500 titles exceeded $250,000 in revenue, which is up 27% over 2023, and more than 200 titles made more than $1 million in new release revenue, which is up 15% since 2023. Now, someone might wonder why customers like you and me might care about this. I mean, it doesn't really affect us, right? And I think that that is a good question, and perhaps we shouldn't care about how well Valve is doing. But I think the pattern of growth and success that Valve is experiencing is what allows Valve to take risks like the Steam Deck or their upcoming console Fremont, because even if those big risks, and those are expensive risks that Valve is trying to take here, even if those risks don't pan out the way that Valve wants, their business is still making plenty of money. So without growth like this, we probably wouldn't have devices like the Steam Deck. And honestly, I don't know that we would see non-Steam Deck PC handhelds either, as in my opinion, the Steam Deck kicked off the PC handheld market. And as somebody that likes playing my PC library on handhelds, I am glad that Valve is doing well. But I'm not a fanboy. I don't want them to sit atop the mountain looking down at their vanquished competitors, because right now, yeah, Valve is doing great things for customers, but at any time, all that could change. So competition is good, but whenever competitors try to mimic what Valve does, it falls apart. But you know what doesn't fall apart? That would be the sponsor of this video. This is the new portable monitor from Arzopa, and they are the sponsors of this video. It is thin, it is lightweight at only 5 millimeters thick, and has a tiny 4 millimeter bezel. It has a 16.1 inch screen with 1080p resolution, 144 hertz refresh rate. This monitor makes a perfect second screen for your laptop, especially because it doesn't need to be charged. You simply plug it into your laptop with one wire, and now you have two screens. But it isn't just good for laptop. It's also great for consoles like the Xbox, PlayStation 5, or Steam Deck, and any other handheld PC, all with a single USB cable. If you want to use it with the Switch, it will require power, as the Switch can't supply power to the monitor via USB. But it's perfect if you're traveling and you want to play some multiplayer games with friends, but you don't want to crowd around a small 7-inch screen like on the Steam Deck. It's also great for watching movies from your phone in a hotel room without signing into the hotel's sketchy TVs or their sketchy Wi-Fi. Whenever I travel, I like to download a movie or two and keep it on my phone, since hotel Wi-Fi is usually a terrible nightmare to use and incredibly slow. At 1.7 pounds, this thing is easy to use on the go, and it even has built-in speakers. The single kickstand on the back allows you to get the perfect angle for whatever it is that you want to use it for. The kickstand goes from 0 degrees all the way up to 80 degrees. So no matter how you're using it, where you're using it, what the lighting conditions are like, you will have no problem seeing what's on that 1080p screen. I personally like that it's a 1080p screen and not a higher resolution, because that means my Steam Deck, my Ally X, or pretty much anything like that is not going to have a problem pushing the pixels needed for gameplay. If you want to check out the display or any of the displays that Arzopa has, click the link in the description down below and pick up one for yourself. Now, back to what I was saying. Let's talk about why the competition struggles to chip away at Valve's ridiculous lead. After getting bloodied over and over in the console wars, Microsoft is currently putting things in place to move away from competing with Sony and PlayStation and compete more directly with Valve. And while it's possible that Microsoft's latest moves can make an impact, what I think will happen instead is that most people will just install Steam on the next Microsoft console, if that's actually a possibility, which is what Phil Spencer has alluded to in the past. I have a video all about this that I posted recently. You can check it in the description down below that like button. By the way, while you're down there, if you want to see more news videos like this, hardware reviews, or podcasts from me, click on that subscribe button and set notifications to all. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. Anyway, back to Valve. The number of people who are logging into Steam just keeps going up. There's a lot of reasons for this. For instance, both Xbox and PlayStation have been pushing their games to Steam. This is because consoles have essentially hit the maximum addressable market that they can. What I mean by that is, for the most part, anybody that wants a console pretty much already has one if it's sold where they live, which is why we always seem to see the same number of consoles sold each generation. That number is flat. It is not increasing. And this would be fine for a company like Valve, but for companies like Sony and Microsoft, which are publicly traded companies, flat growth is a really bad statistics. Investors always need to have growth. This year has to be better than last year, and next year has to be better than this year. Yes, those companies sell video games and video game related things, but I don't consider them to be gaming companies. Someone might think I'm referring to the fact that both Microsoft and Sony are diversified companies that make a lot of money in other places, but that's not why I don't consider them to be gaming companies. Even if Microsoft and Sony were companies that solely focused on video games, I still would not call them gaming companies. They're shareholder companies. Their entire existence is married to the fact that they are publicly traded, and therefore we are not their customers. Their customers are investors, people that do not give a damn about video games. They just want to buy low and sell high, and they want the time between buying and selling to be as short as possible, which forces Microsoft and Sony to do things to give shareholders a return on their investment quickly, even if it's bad for the company in the long term, and therefore also bad for us in the long term. So with the reality setting in that they cannot get growth from new customers for the boxes that go underneath your TV, they've had to find other ways to capture new customers. Microsoft decided to become the biggest publisher in the gaming industry, but that cost them a stupid amount of money. I think it was like $70 billion. So now they have to start shipping their games on other platforms in order to make up for that massive $70 billion cost, including other platforms like PlayStation and Steam. Microsoft is also pushing cloud streaming of games, kind of like Google Stadia tried back in 2019. Essentially, Microsoft wants everything to be an Xbox, which is why they're partnering with TV manufacturers to get xCloud pre-installed on TVs, so all you have to do is buy a controller. At the same time, if that means that your Steam Deck is an Xbox because it plays Xbox games, then so be it. Though, as somebody who has used all the different cloud gaming solutions out there, or at least quite a few of them, I will say that xCloud is the worst experience of all the ones that I've used. Sony is currently dominating the console space if you take Nintendo out of the equation, which honestly, they're kind of their own thing anyway, so it makes sense to do that in my opinion. I don't see a world in which Sony starts putting their games on Xbox, but PC is another matter. Sony's been putting games on PC for a while, and the lag time between when a game is released on a PlayStation system and when it releases on Steam has been getting shorter and shorter. But Microsoft and Sony are not the only ones trying to compete with Valve. Third-party publishers tried to make their own stores. They saw that Valve was getting 30% of their income, and they thought, well, this is bullshit. Why should we give that money to Valve? We'll make our own store. And what they didn't understand, in fact, none of them understood, that Valve isn't just a store. It's also a social media network, a place to discover games, a library of games, and a trophy case all rolled into one. Now, that is not me saying that. That is Ethan Evan, former vice president of Amazon's Prime Gaming, talking about why they couldn't compete with Valve, even though they are a massive company and Valve is comparatively a tiny one. All the big third-party publishers tried and failed to make their own stores, taking their games off of Steam, and then one by one, they came crawling back because the user base, us, we didn't want to have 27 different solutions to the same problem. Valve solved the problem for us just fine, in my view, and we weren't really interested in trying the other stuff. The phrase Valve does nothing and wins, it's a phrase that I see get bandied about a lot here on YouTube, and hell, I've said it myself. As I write this, it might even end up being the title of this video. But in reality, it isn't that Valve does nothing, it's that Valve does things that are pretty good for end users, and they don't do it because they're not doing it just to be nice. They're doing it because they realize that since they are not a publicly traded company, they don't answer to shareholders. And since they don't answer to shareholders, they can play the long game. And the long game is, if you treat customers right, we will keep coming back. So what things did they give us last year, 2024, that they didn't charge us a dime for? Let's take a look at the list. First off, they continued to make it easier for us to find the diamonds in the rough. With thousands of games published to Steam every single day, it is hard to find the good ones because a lot of it, quite honestly, is not great. But with things like Steam Next Fest, which encourages devs to make demos so that we can try the games out for ourselves, you know what? I've said this for years. If a publisher believes in their game, then they should put out a demo. A demo will show players that this is a great game and it will lead to sales. And if you don't believe in your game, then don't put a demo out. So a lot of times when I see a publisher not put a demo out, I understand that it could be because of costs, but it could also be because they don't believe in their game and they're hoping that you'll just buy it based on previews and screenshots. Also, according to Valve, 2024 was their biggest year when it came to themed sales, where it seems like nearly every month we have some kind of sale happening on Steam where you can get amazing games for stupidly low prices. Not only that, but Valve tells us ahead of time what the sales are going to be in the future. Take a look at this list of sales that are coming out in 2025. When you combine the smaller sales with Steam Next Fest and the 4 big seasonal sales that we get each and every year, it's almost hard to pay full price for games on PC. One of the biggest selling points for picking up your games on Steam. Another thing Valve did to make my life better this year is their massive overhaul of Steam families. Previously, if you were part of a Steam, or well, last year, I mean, not this year. Previously, if you were part of a Steam family, and someone that you were sharing your library with started playing a game from your library, you were locked out of your entire library, which is baffling, as did not make any sense. I'm sure publishers liked this, but it doesn't make sense to me. I didn't like it. Valve changed family sharing in March of last year. And the way it works now is how it would work if you were sharing a physical library of games in the same house. You could go to the shelf and you could play any game that was on the shelf as long as no one was currently playing that game at the same time. If you had multiple copies of the game, then you could play it at the same time. This is how everyone should do it. Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, sit up and pay attention. This is pro consumer. It works amazingly well. My library exploded overnight because the people in my Steam family are now all sharing games with each other. And so now I have way more games than I had before. And that's awesome. Of course, they also did limit family members to be required to be in the same geographical region, which I think it's not necessarily a limitation that was there before, but I don't know how many people really bothered to use it before. There are obviously people that don't like the new system because of that, but honestly, the old system was almost unusable for me. So now I don't even have to think about it. In addition to that, they also made it easier for parents to approve purchases, gave us more control over playtime limits, and it's a really great system. And if you look at all of the things that they added last year, they're very console-like things that we never really had in the PC space, especially that parental controls, which leads us to thinking about what they're going to be doing next, possibly Fremont. Then in June, Valve updated game recording, which isn't really a feature that I've been using, but I'm glad it exists for the people that do, and I think there's more people than you think. It basically makes it really simple for people to record their gameplay, edit it down, and then share it. And I've heard that it doesn't always work, and sometimes you just end up recording a blank screen. Hopefully Valve can improve that feature over time. But I really do like the interface where the games can flag key moments that you might want to focus on, like headshots or wins and stuff like that. And get this, this number blew my mind. According to Valve, they get over 800 clips shared every single minute using this new tool. So there's a lot of people out there that are using it successfully and sharing their clips. And all of these new features are keeping people engaged. Valve looked at every new user that they picked up in 2023, which was 1.7 million people. They looked at these people, they said, how much time are they spending playing the games on Steam past the first game that they bought on the platform? So, for instance, if they bought Elden Ring and that was their first game that they bought on Steam, they didn't count any of their Elden Ring time. But perhaps afterwards they picked up RoboCop and they played RoboCop. Well, that counts as playtime. Elden Ring doesn't. And that 1.7 million people spent over 141 million hours playing games on Steam after they were done with that first game that they bought. So those people also bought $20 million of in-game transactions and $73 million on games and DLC for Steam. This kind of thing is the reason why Valve is getting into hardware, I think, and making SteamOS for everyone. It's not because they're altruistic. I think it's because they know that when people use Steam, they make a bunch of money. And while the people using Valve's hardware are a tiny, tiny, tiny portion of Valve's overall user base, it's still worth it because those customers enjoy the conveniences of using Valve's hardware and operating system, which is why when SteamOS releases in the next couple of months, I will be installing it on a bunch of different hardware. Though I guess I should also point out that I don't have to wait, as we do have third-party solutions like Bazite that work fantastically well. All right, so what's next for Steam? Well, just like Xbox and PlayStation are starting to push more towards the PC side of things, Valve is starting to push more towards the console side of things with Steam Deck and possibly Fremont if those rumors are accurate. And earlier, I said that anyone that has a console pretty much already has one. That leaves one thing out: the millions of people that have massive Steam libraries currently chained to their desks. For them, the idea of a walled garden console might not be very attractive. Now, I don't count myself in that list because A, my PC is hooked up to that TV over there, and I am also a console gamer. I've got all that stuff hooked up to that TV over there. But for the people who don't like the walled garden approach of consoles, well, they can now, once this comes out, they can buy a device that can play the library of games that they already own on a TV or a handheld. Well, if Valve can even get a small subset of people to pick up a set-top box like the rumored Fremont or a Steam Deck, then that's going to be a massive win for Valve. I can't speak for anybody else, but after I picked up my Steam Deck, I started playing way more games on my PC that I was not playing before, which is why I really want to see a powerful set-top box that can rival the Xbox Series X or the PS5 in terms of power, but have it come from Valve and let me play all of my Steam games on it. And I want them to sell it in stores just like the other consoles do. And it's not because I'm trying to bring back console wars, because I hate console war bullshit, but competition makes things better for customers. And hopefully Microsoft's next Xbox is just a PC with a good user interface for controller. And hopefully Valve starts selling devices that compete directly with consoles, because when companies compete, consumers win. But that's just me. What do you think Valve needs to do next? Let me know in the comments down below. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. From the Nerd Nest, I'm Bill. Stay rad, and thanks for watching.